Hello and welcome to another edition of the Elite City Podcast. Wow, a lot to talk about. Last night was a pretty amazing episode of Dynamite. So Rick and Jay are with us tonight, and we're going to go over it because Rick is very excited.
I'm very excited. I think, and this, I don't think this is recency bias. I think that might have been one of the best things AEW's ever done.
I agree.
I think that was one of the best things they've done, at least in a long time.
I can't disagree with that.
I mentioned it on Threads earlier today. Other than the very first show, I think that was like now the second most important moment in AEW history, because that was one of the biggest swerves in a long time in wrestling.
It wasn't even just like the fact that it was a surprise, and it was a surprise. I mean, we all probably expected that Mariah May and Toni Storm were going to turn on, one of them was going to turn on somebody.
Absolutely.
At some point, especially with the lead up to Ollie, and like one of them was going to turn on each other. I thought it might be Toni turning on Mariah, but like Mariah turning on Toni wouldn't have surprised me.
But not like last night. It was so sudden, like so sudden, like just.
I didn't think it would be on that show.
Right.
It would be like next week. What I thought was going to happen was Mariah May was going to win. They'd celebrate, and then next week Toni Storm would be like, "Oh, so I'm just going to beat you at All In," and she'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And then they'd have a falling out. I thought that's where they were going to go with it. I didn't expect it to be on that, and I didn't expect it to be like. It wasn't even just like she hit her with the belt. That would be like a surprising turn. It was just so visceral, and like the Toni Storm screaming, and like her screaming was not even like I'm in pain screaming. It was like I'm emotionally.
Yeah. It was very distressed.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not even like she just hit Toni. She went after Aubrey. Like she hit everybody.
Yeah.
And then she came after her with the shoe, which was a funny thing up until now, and now it's like a mean thing. It was just perfect.
It was perfect. I want to give Luther a little bit of credit. Like he played it not in character, which you know, like how he's really all animated. Like he was really like obviously part of the act, but like looked concerned, not like.
And he took a leap off that stage.
Yes, he did. And if you notice, it was actually funny. I don't know if they had like scripted it. Like whenever Mariah May goes to hit Luther, she kind of like stops, and then he mouthed something to her, like probably like, "No, hit me." And then she whacked him. Like if you go back and watch it, there's like hesitation.
I'll have to watch it again. I completely missed that.
It's kind of funny because like she goes and then like hesitates, and then he says something, and then it's like,
wasn't he like a deathmatch wrestler?
Yes. So yeah. So that really wasn't that big of a deal, but it was what a moment. Like you don't get things like that in pro wrestling much anymore, especially with, like you said, Rick, like obviously we knew that someone was going to turn on someone, but not 9 seconds after the match was over. Like,
and not in such a like it wasn't even like
brutal way.
Yeah, it wasn't like a over the top brutal way even. Like it was just mean. It was just like it felt mean. Whereas like the week before, MJF turned on Daniel Garcia, which first of all, it was good, but like no one ever knew MJF was going to turn on Daniel Garcia. That was, of course, it's MJF. But like, and that he beat him up, he bloodied him, he tombstoned him or piled over him off the corner, and like that was good, but it felt like a wrestling angle. It felt like this felt like she like wanted to kill Toni Storm. Like it felt real. It felt brutal.
Yeah.
It was like. I don't want to say it was like really gay too, with like how she cradled Tony's face, but I mean, come on.
It was perfect. That was perfect. That was like, oh, I love you, but I'm gonna destroy you. Like
it was so sensual, right? Like I'm not the only one that thinks that.
No, it was like sick. It was like sadistic sensual.
Yeah,
like,
Like I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And like now is Mina gonna be involved in this somehow?
Well, Mina tweeted out, "No, why Mariah? Why?"
Yeah, I wonder if she's gonna get involved though. Is she gonna show up?
It would obviously that would make sense. This is my theory. My theory is they hype up this match. Obviously, they go to Wembley. Mariah May wins. Lights go out. Jamie Hayter comes back.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know
utter bananas.
Sean Ross Sapp tweeted something today about how they're working on plans for Jamie Hayter's return. So she's like at least somewhat close to returning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I was just thinking, like it's so weird how this summer flew by all of a sudden. Like All In is not that far away. I was like, oh well, it'll be all the way at Wembley, and it's like, oh wait, no, that's like in 6 weeks.
Yeah. See, now that you mentioned it, I thought that Toni was going to turn because Mariah May is from England and she's gonna
that's true.
My assumption was, Toni Storm is over, but Mariah May is going to be the face because it's in England. So I thought Toni was going to turn, but now that totally changed everything.
And then that is going to be the build up and lead up to this is going to be
now it won't main event All In, but it could.
It'll be like this semi main event.
Yeah,
because
like I know it's not going to main event, but like if it did, it deserves it. It totally deserves
like
to be there.
It's gonna definitely be like a big draw though, even if it doesn't main event. It's gonna be a really big draw. So
yeah,
this whole thing with Mariah May and Toni, we've talked about it a bunch. This whole thing with Mariah May and Toni Storm and Mina and all this has been like it's been for a while. It's going on a while now.
Yeah,
and it's been one of their best. Like people say they don't have storylines, which is nonsense because this is great. Like all of it has been great. Toni Storm changing into timeless Toni Storm has been great. The fallout with the Outcast was good. Then her partnering up with Mariah May was good. The Mina stuff, like all of it, it's great stuff.
Now,
I honestly didn't think that they. No offense to either of them, I didn't think they had it in them to do such a like emotionally charged storyline. I knew they were good wrestlers and like personal people, but I didn't think they had like this emotional storyline in them, which obviously they do.
What do you think Toni does? Do you think she puts a little like little niche to her character and becomes another character, or do you think she takes this one even more over the top?
Yeah, she can't really be like as goofy now, right? Because this happened to her.
It got serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. She's not just gonna drop. She's not gonna drop it and be Toni Storm either. So I don't know.
Do you think she's gonna become like a broken version of herself?
Like broken Matt Hardy. Oh my god.
Yeah, like broken Matt Hardy or EC3.
Yeah, she'll be like extra crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be.
But like more of like a bitter, violent crazy than a just
very
like
bitter crazy,
delusional crazy. Yeah.
Oh,
that's so good.
Yeah, very good.
I don't know if this is true, but I read just in the internet, which never lies.
True.
And someone was saying that RJ City is involved in a lot of writing of this angle. I don't know if that's true, but that would be really cool if he was.
So much sense.
It would make so much sense.
Because RJ loves like campy like old shows. Like he's the mod guy. Like he loves mod.
Yeah.
He's known for mod. It would make so much sense if it's RJ behind all of this. So I can see that happening.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Did only like today when I was thinking about it. It did kind of totally like MJF's heel turn, which was like the shocking heel turn. Like this totally overshone that now. Now you're just like, MJF beat up Danny Garcia, whatever. Like,
but like you, right? And honestly though, but like you said, Rick, like that's kind of expected from MJF. So even though he was not a heel, like it's like, oh okay, he's just MJF. But this was like, I didn't see it coming this fast.
and it like I said, it felt not only brutal, like the violence involved in it. Like obviously AEW's done more violent things than this, right? But this felt, for some reason, way more brutal than anything else they've done. Yeah. And maybe it's their like the characters' closeness with each other, or like that they've always kind of been kind of cheesy and campy and fun, and now like this came out of nowhere, sort of.
Right, and the fact that there's not like the typical pro wrestling trope, like they weren't hugging and then Mariah May like looked at the camera and like gave like a scowl, or
she just grabbed the belt and like spun around and smacked her
in the face. Yeah,
you couldn't see her face. It was just literally like she was like going to, I thought she was gonna go like pick up the trophy, and then she like just grabs the belt and wham, like she swings around and that's it.
Yeah, you're right. There was no build up to it. Usually you see like You can
Yeah,
see
like a
them,
little
the
crack.
faces standing
Yeah.
there, and someone sneaks up behind them, and you can see them about to hit them, and you're like, oh my god, it's gonna
like,
happen.
I
But,
thought
like,
I legit thought like she was gonna go pick up the trophy, and I was like, why is she like? I was like, oh, the belt, okay, oh.
yeah, and like before that happened, I was like, oh, Jeff Jarrett and Martha Hart handed out the trophy to
Yeah.
Danielson. How come they're? Oh, that's why they're not here. That makes a lot of sense. That was
Yeah.
good. It was so good. It was perfect. I think it was perfect. I don't think they could have done it any better than that.
I'll agree with that because there was nothing to complain about. It was so well done and so.
And the
like,
camera work was great. Like first they zoomed in on like
Yeah.
blood, and then they zoomed out, and she was just standing, kind of like holding her head, like she'd like decapitated her, holding her head up, just
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it was very primal. Like very.
And she didn't
primal.
even look like Mariah May didn't even look happy about it. She was just like, I
No,
have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And see, that's like I've criticized blood in wrestling before, but like that's when you need blood in wrestling. Like that was perfect.
oh yeah, that
Especially the way like Mariah leaned down and she kissed Toni on the forehead, and then the blood was like on her.
yes.
I think because I've also been very critical. I think like sometimes we get a little too gory and bloody in wrestling, but I think when it's appropriate, it really takes it to the next level. And I feel like this is one of those instances because it is part of the storytelling.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, totally.
And it worked even better because Toni's obviously very lightly like bleach blonde, and like her skin's been very like pale
She's so
makeup
fair.
for this character,
Yeah.
and like she's wearing all white. It looked even more. So I saw someone say she was black and white, and Mariah May made her color, which I thought was a good line. So good, all of it good.
I've heard that her story, Toni's, the whole story was based on All About Eve. I don't know how true that is though. Which is like an old. I think it's an old movie. I think.
Yeah, then it's definitely RJ City. If that's what
it's got to be, right? It's got to be RJ. Like
that's interesting.
Super RJ coded.
Yeah, so it was so good. I don't know. I have nothing else to say other than that it was great and I loved it. I don't know where they go next. I really want to know now. Like there's very few times when Dynamite ends with an angle that like, no, now I have to see the next thing, which has been one of my criticisms of Dynamite. You can miss it, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Right. But now I'm like, oh, I have to see whatever happens next. Like I have
This feels like a segment like, yeah, you can't miss. Like, because if you miss an episode, you're gonna miss what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And next week is Dynamite 250. So that crept up on us already. So they're obviously going to do something special for that night. So I don't know what they'll do. But there's probably going to be some sort of like contract signing or something.
But I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't make it a wrestling angle because it didn't feel like a wrestling angle, and I don't want it to be. I want it to be a relationship, like it's like a relationship where a friendship falls apart. Like if your friend stabs you in the back, you're not like, now I'm going to sign a contract. Like you're brutal with them.
Well, the contract wouldn't make sense anyway because Mariah already there is no contract because she won the belt and that's guaranteed. So but they'll do something. I mean, they have to get them together.
Totally off topic, but speaking of Dynamite 250 episodes.
Yeah.
How many episodes did WCW Nitro have?
It was like 220 something. Or maybe even 180. It's not many.
I don't know.
288.
You're 288. Like the old guy that knows all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it off the top of my head. I looked it up.
I was fairly close.
So yeah,
I knew it wasn't many.
In 39 episodes, Dynamite's aired longer than Nitro, which seems crazy.
Well, I was thinking when they announced last night that it's going to be episode 250 next week. I remember watching Raw 250, but it seemed like Raw was on for 45 years to hit 250 episodes. You know?
Yeah, things move faster now in current times, and also I think the pandemic kind of changed everyone's perception of time. There was a whole
that's true.
W ran for
we're still in 2020. I don't know if you know that. We have the 2010s or the 2000s, which is 2000, 1999 to 2015, and then 2016 is from 2016 until 2020, and now we are just in 2020 indefinitely. So time doesn't make sense anymore.
They literally had a year where they just had no audience. So
yeah, that's true.
That kind of skews. They had 50 episodes in there that like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like they did, but they
It
did.
does not feel like they did.
Wow, that's nuts. Anyway,
I'm excited. The last couple episodes of Dynamite have been some of their strongest episodes, I'd say. Like the last 2, 3 episodes, 4 episodes, they've been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also had the men's Owen, which I was surprised on the winner of this one. I thought Hangman was going to win.
I definitely thought Hangman was going to win.
Yeah, I think I even texted you during the week, like, "Oh, it's too bad we already know the outcome of this."
Yeah.
I was like, well, and I'm stoked that Danielson won.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I would
it's
be.
cool for him to have like he's gonna have like his moment, whether he wins or loses. He's gonna have a moment in front of like massive crowd.
Yeah.
To me, it almost feels like I get why we'd all think like Hangman's gonna win, but based on like how the path he was going, it almost like made sense for him not to.
Well, yeah, now he can be more insane.
Right, just because he's going a little off the hook. And I feel like if he would have won, that would have just stopped that momentum of where it's going with Hangman.
Now, do you think the Elite somehow gets him in the match as like and makes it a triple threat, or is he just not in the match?
100%. I think just because it's going to come back to like, I believe like he and Kenny had like years way back on Dynamite when it was first going on. I think I can't remember. I believe there was something with him and Kenny and the Bucks, and I feel like this is all kind of like coming back full circle to that.
And I mean, Danielson in WWE has a history of being the third guy in matches where like he's not where he shouldn't be, right? Like it was supposed to be, you know, Batista versus Randy Orton, and here's Danielson, and it was supposed to be Edge versus Roman Reigns, and here's Daniel Bryan, and now it's like it's supposed to be Hangman versus Swerve, and here's Bryan Danielson, like he's the third guy a lot of the time.
Off topic, but that reminds me of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view I went to, and it was supposed to be, oh God, it was Kane and somebody else, and then they got attacked, and guess who they threw out there with Kane?
Bryan Danielson. Daniel Bryan. Yeah.
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. And I bet it was terrible because it was like 1990 to 2026 or 2016 WWE.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was 2018, and it was pretty bad.
They had a rough time. They had a really rough time for a couple years there.
Definitely one of like that was when the show really started to go downhill that night. Yeah. It was good up until about halfway, and then we just lost momentum. But anyway.
I'm going to segue myself into speaking of WWE.
Okay.
I went to the NXT pay-per-view this weekend because tickets.
Oh, was that a pay-per-view?
Why not? Yeah,
I didn't realize it was
lots of PLE. But yes.
I refuse to use those letters. So that's just
it was one of the first ones they've had in a while where, you know what, I don't know if you know anything about NXT, but Jay knows. Nope. They used to have like the takeover specials where like they had
I know. Yeah.
Those were pay-per-view. They were good. They were really good. They
were so good.
And then since NXT 2.0 and now it's just NXT again since Triple H is back in charge, they've just shot everything at, I think it's at the Performance Center. They just shoot all their shows there, and they have specials, but they just shoot them there in front of like a studio audience, basically. So this was kind of their return to an arena show, which they haven't done in a while.
Okay.
It was really good. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. I had very low standards going into it, and it was very, very good. I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between NXT and AEW, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, go for it.
I'm going to start with the positives so that when I go to the negatives, you realize that that I'm a well-rounded person, and you feel bad for attacking me when I mention positives.
You're like the meme of like, when you're being mean to me, this is who you're being mean to, and it's some cute little critter.
That's right.
When you're being mean, when you're bullying Rick, this is who you're being mean to.
That's right. So first, I want to say NXT feels, and this is going to sound weird, NXT feels young. Like it feels like a young person's TV show. And it is. Like most of the wrestlers there are like in their 20s, and they're not that experienced, but they're like, they have like youthful energy. They have like coolness where like they can wear garish colors and giant sunglasses, and like
NXT has always been marketed that way. Like,
yeah.
I mean, when you look at who used to be on the roster back when I still watched it, and they had the cool takeovers and all that, I mean, it seemed definitely like catered towards like an edgier, younger crowd. that like
it's not edgy now. Like it was an edgier younger crowd before, but now it's not edgy. It's like pop crowd, right? It's like it's like colorful and bright and cool, and like someone can show up wearing a multicolored jacket and flashing sunglasses, and like they don't look like an idiot because they're 23 years old, and that's what 23-year-olds look like. If a 40-year-old wears that, they look like an idiot, right? So like they can get away with being like kind of brash and poppy and like you could see them at like a music awards or something, right? Like it feels like that. Like they feel young and cool. Whereas like
you've lost me already. Like that's the absolute opposite of any place I want to be. Any place
that's what I want to say. So that's what I want to say. Like AEW feels like it's wrestling for us, right? It's for, like for our age.
Before AEW existed in NXT, like I said, it always felt like it was kind of catering to that edgier, younger crowd.
Yeah.
It seemed like the people that really liked NXT, because NXT was often pulling wrestlers like from the indies and other companies. I think that kind of was like our age was into that, because you knew those people from, if you liked the kind of stuff that AEW does, you liked NXT at that time because that's what they were doing. Like it was
I think they realized that, right? Like they were like the cool super indie, but they weren't an indie because they were tied to WWE. But they felt like a cool super indie, right? But they were tied to WWE, so they weren't actually an indie. They're like when for music term, like a major label starts like an offshoot brand and hires all like the cool young bands. They're like, it's cooler than the major label, but it's still associated with a major label. It's not actually an indie band. And then AEW showed up and they actually were a separate company, and it kind of took that edge away from them. Like they no longer had that, like, we're the cool super indie, because there's an actual cool super indie over here.
Correct.
That took their vibe. So NXT feels like they've kind of pivoted from, okay, we're not a cool super indie. We're like the young people show, right? Like if you want to watch wrestlers you've never heard of, and you want to watch them do things you never saw them do because you don't, like, they're all brand new, this is your show. It does feel like the future of what WWE is going to be. Not the future of wrestling, but it does definitely feel like this is like in 5 years, this is going to be WWE. That's where it's going.
And that's fine.
See, that sounds boring to me. 1000% boring, because then you've already seen it. What's there to look forward to?
Well, it's like, I mean, like I'm a Canadian, so this doesn't apply to me. But if you watch college football, you're like, correct, oh, these guys are going to be in the NFL in a couple of years. These are the guys I'm going to get to see. Or like for Canadian viewpoint, like you watch the World Juniors, you're like, oh yeah, right, I saw Connor Bedard when he was 16. Now I'm going to get to see him in the NHL. That's cool, right? Like you get to follow them as they go up. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to start watching NXT just because, first of all, right, I don't have time for this, and it's not geared towards me. I think it really is geared towards like a 25-year-old. I think that's their audience.
I guess I could see that, but I don't know. It just sounds like it's a cookie cutter factory, and those people are just going to be those people forever. Like,
maybe, but I mean, I've seen before, not saying that it will happen, but I have seen before where, somebody does something in NXT and then they come to the main roster, and it's, and I mean, people, they do change their gimmicks and such. So stuff sometimes works really well in NXT, and then it doesn't translate well to Raw or SmackDown. So
because NXT usually is shot in front of like, 200 people, right? It's like in a small studio. So maybe things that work there.
Or whatever.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing, two things I wanted to say. NXT feels like the AEW has a feeling of like, it's a show for us. It's a show for people in like their 30s and 40s who like wrestling and want to see wrestling that people in their 30s and 40s like, which I like. I'm not like, it's an enjoy. I'm not knocking it. But it does kind of feel like this is the wrestling that you remember. It has like a 90s feel to it, or like sometimes an even earlier, like an 80s old school feel to it, or like, oh, I remember that from ECW. I remember that from WCW. Like, that's cool. Like, because we're old. NXT doesn't feel like that. NXT feels like this is a different thing, and it's shot differently. It looks different. It's like, it's if you'd never seen wrestling before and you wanted to show a 12-year-old what wrestling is, you could do NXT and it'd be perfectly fine. And they wouldn't feel like they're missing anything. And they wouldn't feel like they have to know these people. They don't. Like, it is like an introductory to WWE style wrestling.
That's like probably the best way to describe it.
Still sounds dumb.
But it's not geared to you. You're 45 years old. They don't care about you.
Well, no,
You're
but
not their target audience.
Yeah. It is like
that,
watching, some 18-year-old pop star being like, I don't like that. Well, you're not supposed to.
No, but my point is like what I was saying, like, why does it have to be watered down for something that's already watered down?
I don't see. That's my second point. I don't think it is watered down. This is my controversial point. A lot of these, they play video packages because it's WWE. They play video packages nonstop, right? So they're playing video packages of before every match, telling you who these people are, which is why WWE fans get mad that AEW doesn't do it. Because if you're
like, that sounds dumb. Like what? Like you have to be, like you should do your homework.
I think that I don't know if they do it all the time. I think they did it on this one because
the average person who's tuning into WWE isn't the kind of fan like an AEW fan, and that's the whole point.
Yeah, it's a totally like they don't expect you to ever watch their show. Like they don't, and they're not trying to get you to watch their show. You're not who they want to watch this program.
I guess I just don't understand casual fans of anything because I'm not of anything. Yeah. Like, that's why my counterpoints always seem so negative towards this. Like with music, with anything, I'm not going to half-ass anything.
I think part of it, though, was because it was their kind of like their return to an arena show. So there probably were people who watch WWE who don't watch NXT. I'm sure like the NXT audience is significantly smaller than like Raw or SmackDown. So they were probably thinking, oh, people who don't watch NXT might watch this one. So we have to tell you who these people are because
plus two, they might figure people will show up for NXT because didn't you mention like how much cheaper the tickets were?
Yeah, it was like way cheaper.
Like, the event going on.
Yeah. Like Money in the Bank was like for the tickets that I got, Money in the Bank was like $250 for those seats. And they were like the second deck. They were not close seats. I paid $18. So
right. So they probably figured we're going to get people that wanted to go see Money in the Bank, but they couldn't afford it. So they're going to go see NXT because it's cheap wrestling.
And like my point that I want to get to is they pivoted when AEW got big because they were like, oh, we're not going to be the cool indie. We're not going to sign all the indie guys. The indie guys aren't going to want to work here. They're going to want to work in AEW. So they pivoted to, we're going to train our own people. We're going to get people who are professional athletes in other fields, football players or gymnasts or whoever, and we're going to teach them how to wrestle because they're already athletic and we can teach them. And that's what they've done. And Blasco's going to hate me, but it's working. Like, it's working. The matches there weren't on the level of like an AEW pay-per-view, but they were on the level with like an episode of Dynamite.
But it works.
They were pretty good.
I feel like it works though when they do that method with athletes because their whole thing, their shtick has been sports entertainment for the longest time. So they're looking for athletes over like a hardcore like wrestling.
Yeah. Mark. And I mean, it's not good for wrestlers because if you're a wrestler in the indies, NXT isn't really an option for you anymore because they're not looking for you anymore.
Right.
They're not looking to hire an indie wrestler, which is bad for someone who's an indie wrestler because they're going to hire a football player or a gymnast or a sprinter or whatever, someone who's athletic and just teach them how to wrestle. And I mean, they've been doing it. I mean, the matches were good. There wasn't a match there that I kind of thought, oh, it's going to be sloppy wrestling because these people have been wrestling for like 2 years. But there were people there who've been wrestling for like 2 or 3 years, and like they weren't Bryan Danielson, but they were perfectly serviceable wrestlers. Like in 5 years, yeah, they're going to be really good.
So, Anjika, I just have a question. You spent $250 to go to Money in the Bank?
I didn't, but
or that's okay.
Yeah.
That is that every pay-per-view that
I don't know
that much?
I think maybe it's because it's in Toronto and Toronto's expensive. It might have been more here. But yeah, that's a crazy amount to spend on something. And from what I've heard, it wasn't very good.
I spent less money to see Kiss, and I don't even like Kiss, but like they're like the biggest rock band ever.
Yeah.
See, when I was to see Extreme Rules, like I said, that was 2018, and things in the company obviously are different now than they were. What was that, like 6 years ago? Sheesh. That was a pay-per-view.
2 years ago tops.
Oh yeah, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we were at PPG, which I mean, we were in section, I think it was 220, I think. Tickets were $75 a piece before fees. I went with Laura, my friend Laura, and that's in the upper bowl. So that's the upper bowl of PPG or console or whatever whatever you call it, the paint can. And I hadn't been to any NXT shows. I had not been to. They were always like house shows at Stage AE. So I don't know how much those were, but to jump from $75 to 250 is quite an increase.
Yeah, I think it might be. I mean, Money in the Bank is kind of one of their big pay-per-views now. It's like after their big three, like Mania and SummerSlam and Royal Rumble, it's probably the next biggest one. So maybe that's why, and maybe it's because it was in Toronto, or maybe that's just what they charge. I have no idea.
That looks like what they charge for pay-per-views. I'm looking at SummerSlam right now, and in a giant stadium, the very last row of the giant stadium, so you picture not even be able to see a wrestling ring, $83 for one ticket without fees. That's the last row of the whole place.
Where is it at? Where's SummerSlam at? I don't remember.
It's at Cleveland Brown Stadium.
Oh God, that's right.
Which is the only reason I know it's Cleveland. For that, okay, now to go on my negatives of NXT. They air so many videos about stuff that I don't care about, like nonstop. Like in between matches, it's just like, oh, this pay-per-view is happening here. I don't care. I'm not in Cleveland.
They love to advertise. When you go to any event for WWE, they love to advertise. They're like, oh, this is coming up and that's coming up, and subscribe to our network. Like they love to advertise.
They were advertising like pay-per-view, like Bad Blood is in Atlanta. They were like, oh, buy tickets to Bad Blood. I'm like, I'm not going to Atlanta. What are you like? No, that's
they do that at every show. Every show.
That's
that's
dumb.
Not worthwhile to me in any capacity. And at one point, they aired like 10 minutes of that WrestleMania 40 documentary about The Rock and Triple H. They just aired 10 minutes of a documentary, like just for no reason. Like in between matches, they're like, we're just gonna put on 10 minutes of a documentary. It's like The Rock and Triple H talking about preparing for WrestleMania. It has nothing to do with anything you're gonna see right now.
Was it like an intermission?
No, I don't know. They just aired like 10 minutes of this video. They didn't say anything.
I remember there being an intermission at Extreme Rules, but and I think there was some kind of like a video promo. I'm sure there's a video promo package. I don't remember what it was, but I had drank quite a few beers at that point. Yeah, they love their video packages.
Like that's the thing. They don't. When you go to an AEW show, like we've all been to them, and they like. Justin Roberts or whoever's in the ring, and he talks to you between matches or when they're on commercial. He like, hey, this is coming up next, or here's some signs, or what do you think? Like he just talks to the crowd. They don't talk to you at all. They come in and they go, welcome to NXT Heatwave, and they have the show, and then there's like 5 minutes between, and sometimes there's just nothing happening. Like they changed the ring apron once, and like they didn't do anything. They just like stopped and just like changed the canvas, and like everyone just sat there for 5 minutes.
So funny to me because I've been to multiple SmackDowns and Raws, and they have like they come out and do the announcing, and then they try to get like the crowd hyped up.
No, they did nothing.
They do a thing. Really, they do like a thing, and they like play music, and they're like, "Come on, we want to hear you." Like they try to get the crowd hyped up. Like
no,
before
they did not.
The show
all they did was at the beginning. They kind of did like "Welcome to NXT," and that's it. Then at the end, then the show ended, and everyone kind of just sat around, and then the guy came on and was like, "We'll see you next time," and like that's it.
Wow.
It's obviously a TV show that happens to have an audience, whereas like AEW or most wrestling shows are like a live show, right, where they interact with the audience. This was like they were filming a TV show, and you're the studio audience for the show, and we just need you to be here. Like that was weird.
See, to me, that's like Nickelodeon stuff. That's like Nickelodeon stuff.
And like it was like people booed that like 10-minute promo thing. People were just booing it. Like it was just like, and I think they might have cut it because people were booing, and then it ended, but not at a spot where you would think it would end. Like it wasn't like they aired one full segment of the thing. They kind of just trailed it off. Like, oh, they probably realized like, oh, people are booing this. We're gonna stop it. It was very weird.
Like I ain't going somewhere and giving you my money to watch a DVD. That's just dumb. Like
I just wonder if they did that at Money in the Bank, because like I paid $20, so I don't really care, right? But like if you're paying $200, like you're not gonna want to sit there and watch that.
But you figure you're live on pay-per-view, so They're not doing that.
I mean, this was
then
live.
again,
this wasn't pre-taped. This was a live show.
And they still did all that?
I think
more of a joke than I thought.
It was for Peacock, right? So I think Peacock has ads, or from what I remember, Peacock has like the ad plan and the no ad plan. Yep. And so even a WWE show that doesn't plan to have ads in it, they need to take breaks because some people watching it are on the plan with ads. So they can't just go nonstop because some people have to break for ads.
God, is that dumb?
Yeah.
Why would you pay the extra money?
Well, for everything else on Peacock that doesn't have ads.
Yeah, there's no ads. It's just like any other streaming service. You can.
So if you want to watch, if you want to watch The Office without ads,
you can watch
The Office without. But if you want to pay less, you can watch it, and they put ads in the show. So that if something's live, they just air. I remember watching WrestleMania.
So even if something's live, they have to put ads in it.
Yeah. I remember watching WrestleMania one year, and it was weird because they would show like a promo video for a match that happened. It was WrestleMania, so it was 2 days. So they aired a promo video for what happened the night before for like 3 minutes, and then they'd air a promo video for the next match. And I remember thinking, why are they airing stuff that happened yesterday? But it was because they needed to put in ads, and that's their spot to put in the ad.
Well, it's kind of like when we watch, like Rick watches what you can watch Dynamite on. What do you watch it on, Rick? Is it?
Yeah, I watch on Fight.
Right, and you don't have ads, and you're like, oh, I'm listening to commentary, and then like I'm watching on TBS, and it's like picture in picture.
Right.
So it's the same kind of thing. Like they know their time slots where to air ads.
But it's just because
at least something is still happening, though.
Yeah, something's still happening on the people who aren't watching with no ads. Whereas on Peacock, if you're watching with no ads,
you're just watching nothing.
You're just watching nothing. They just air whatever.
And I know I've mentioned this before when I've been to like SmackDown or Raw like shows. The tapings they do live. I think I went to one. It was shortly after Christmas, and it was supposed to air like New Year's Day, and they gave them the day off, so it was pre-recorded. But they did the same thing. Like they recorded it like it was live. And when they do like there's a commercial break, and there'll be like conflict, and somebody comes out to the ring and they play the music and they cut to commercial, and you're literally
I've seen clips of that,
watching commercial like on like the WWE commercial while they're on a commercial break on TV, like when it was back on USA, and like you'll literally be watching commercial and they're standing there in the ring like it's so dark, and they're waiting for music to come back, and then there's like conflict, like there's a fight.
I've seen videos on the internet where like I forget who it was, but say it was like John Cena insulting someone, and then Randy Orton comes out, and then before Randy Orton talks, he just stands there for 2 minutes.
He just stands there in the ring for 2 minutes in the dark.
Yeah,
it's wild.
It's weird. It's weird because because it's a TV show. You would think that they would be able to time those breaks better,
which is why it's so weird.
Hire
to
a producer.
AEW.
Yeah.
AEW does it so much better.
I went to an AEW show. I didn't even realize when they were on commercial most of the time.
Right.
Because like stuff's happening. Like I think I told you guys when they had the show that I went to had Dynamite followed by Rampage, and in between Dynamite and Rampage they like changed out the ring and the ring apron and everything to say Rampage, and they just had the Acclaim come out and talk for 5 minutes while they were changing out the ring, and they did like I didn't even realize that it was the time in between two shows. Like they just entertained you so you didn't even think about it.
They do that really well with their tapings. You don't really know when there's a commercial.
Yeah.
And you can like, okay, so there's picture in picture during the match, like when it goes to commercial on TBS. But like when you're watching TV and they're like, oh, somebody comes out and there's conflict, I'm still like pre-programmed to expect commercial. And it's really weird when that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So all I wanted to say about the NXT stuff is people now I think it's gotten to a point where people have been like, oh, there's competitiveness between AEW and WWE, which there is, and 100%. Now people are like, oh, AEW, or what are the Dynamite ratings compared to the NXT ratings? I don't even think those matter right now, even less so than ratings ever matter, because I don't think it's a show for two people. It is like saying, what's the audience between this like 18-year-old pop star and this 35-year-old rock band? Like there is no crossover audience. They're not competing. They're not competing for that. No one goes, oh, but Taylor Swift is selling so well. Why isn't this rap? They're not the same person. They're not gearing.
I wouldn't even consider it like Taylor Swift. I consider it like Chapel Roan and like I'm trying to think of a really great band so Blasco doesn't get mad at me. Like it's just two totally like Chapel Roan is a very, very niche audience. And then you have like another incredibly niche audience with another, like a metal band. So
yeah, it's it's
very
not even the
different.
same. It's not the same at all. And I feel like this is going to, like, WWE was smart to do this because they're going to train a whole generation of wrestlers to wrestle WWE style. And that's what they want. And then it's also harder for those people to go anywhere else because right now
That's what I was
AEW will
just gonna say.
AEW will hire Adam Cole from WWE because Adam Cole wasn't trained by WWE. Adam Cole was a
Correct.
wrestler before WWE.
Right.
And he could just go back to wrestling the way he's always wrestled. Whereas if you're any NXT wrestler who's only been trained to wrestle NXT style or a WWE style, you're going to have a hard time wrestling anywhere else. And I mean, they do that on purpose.
Right.
And
so
that's what I hate about them.
I mean, it's good for them, but it's bad for like wrestlers in general, for sure.
Wrestlers, yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb. Like it's teaching you a skill that can literally only be used in one place for 5 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, for them, for WWE, it's smart, but for everyone else,
oh yeah,
because yeah, I mean,
at that point you're just a puzzle piece and you're replaceable. But
I mean, Shawn Michaels has said, which I kind of agree with, that their new thing is we're going to take people who aren't wrestlers, who are athletic, and teach them to be wrestlers. And he said it's kind of like college. You get 3 or 4 years, and if you can't do it, you're done, and we move on. Whereas there was the trend before in NXT where like guys like what's their names?
You're gonna have to be more specific.
Gargano and
you know what? That was gonna be my example. Gargano and Ciampa. They have been like
they didn't want to leave NXT. They were just like, we're gonna stay in NXT.
Every stupid takeover ended with them like just beating the snot out of each other, and I'm like, come on, get a new gimmick.
And they both basically said they didn't want to leave NXT because that was the style that they wanted. NXT used to be like kind of an indie style.
Right.
Whereas now Shawn Michaels has basically said, no, you're going to be in NXT to learn how to be on Raw or SmackDown, and if you don't, you're gone.
Right, and NXT always was developmental, and then I think they got away from that, which was fine, and I enjoyed it when it got away from developmental. But
what really happened is they were developmental, and then they started hiring all the cool indie stars, and then it started being a cool indie, and so they're like, oh, we're going to position this as a third brand, which is the cool indie brand. But then AEW showed up and was actually a new company.
I guess. Maybe
I should read. And kind of killed that from them.
I should actually finish reading the NXT book. I have it.
And it kind of killed that cool aspect of NXT. Anyway, we talked about NXT too much. I just wanted to say, better show than I expected it to be, and too many ads.
Nice. And for 46 minutes, I had nothing to add because I had no idea what you were talking about.
Gibby Gabby.
What I do want to say is people are going to get mad at me for this one. There was, I forget their names now, 2 women wrestlers who are both gymnasts. I don't remember their names. But they had a package before that they were both gymnasts, and now sidebar. I found it interesting that a lot of them were like, a lot of the stories was, I conquered all my goals as a gymnast, and now wrestling is my next thing I'm going to try to be successful in. Whereas previous wrestling promos have always been, I've wanted to be a wrestler my whole life, and this is the culmination of my lifelong dream. Where like that's not where they're positioning it anymore. Now they're positioning it as like, I'm an athletic person and I want to do something athletic, so that's why I'm here. So I found that interesting.
Basically, Carmella walked so that they could run.
Yes, yes. But anyway, there was 2 women wrestlers. I forget their names, sorry, but they were previously gymnasts and now they're wrestlers. And they had a pretty good match. Like it was a very gymnast featured match. It had a lot of flips and stuff like that in it. But it was a good match. I enjoyed it. And then Dave Meltzer had the audacity to come out and go, oh, that was just flips. There was no storyline there. I'm like, have you seen half of matches that Dave Meltzer has rated highly?
5 stars.
Yeah, they're just flips. They just happened in the Tokyo Dome. So he's like, oh, there's a story to there. No, like,
no, those people actually know how to wrestle. I agree with Dave.
I hate Dave so much.
No, I don't agree with Dave because these people know how to wrestle too. They just didn't.
They know how to WWE wrestle. They know how to sports entertain.
Nope, they know how to wrestle. You didn't watch it. They know how to actually wrestle. It was a good match.
Dave is an idiot. I stand firmly by my opinion. Speaking of idiots, let's talk about Hangman and the disrespect for Renee, okay?
I thought that
I
was
was
great.
so mad. I mean, it was
I thought
great.
it
It
was
was a
great.
great segment, but I was so mad the way she stood up for herself and he
Oh, it
shooed
was
her
awesome.
away. Shame on him.
It really positioned Hangman as like a real jerk because
Yeah,
like now he's even being mean to Renee. No one's mean to Renee.
right.
Like
Nobody's mean to
even
Renee.
people
I was
who are feuding with
upset.
John Moxley are nice to Renee. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Nobody
I thought
messes
it
That's
with
what I was just gonna
was
Renee.
say.
really good.
That's what I was just gonna say about Renee. The easy trope would be, oh, someone was mean to me, I'm gonna go run to John, and like obviously they never do that. I wonder if this leads to Moxley being like, "What, you think you can talk to my wife that way?" Like,
I hope it doesn't.
oh, see, I hope it does, because then that adds a little more to the like realness of like, you don't talk to my wife that way. But
Yeah, but
I
that feels
get,
like if you open that bottle, then you kind of have to always go to it. If anyone's mean to
well,
Renee,
Right.
why is he not standing up for her?
definitely double-edged sword. But this one was a little. I'm with Jay on this one. Like that was overstepping the line because it's Renee.
Nobody's mean to Renee.
Right.
I do agree with Rick though. I feel like it would have to fall back. It
Yeah.
would come back around again, and they'd have to, not every time, but it would probably fall back again on it.
Now, I have a theory that I think Hangman's working with Kenny, and this is all an act.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm into that.
Yeah, I think that he's like, I'm using air quotes here. He's crawling back to the Bucks to get back into the Elite, and that's why he's at Blood and Guts. And I think he screws the Bucks at Blood and Guts.
I could see that happening.
And that's like, he's still going to be concerned with Swerve, and he's still going to be like crazy Hangman. But there's two. I have a feeling there's two. There's more intention here than just to get back with the Bucks. That's just me.
But that's not an excuse to be mean to Renee. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
I agree. I agree. But he's just playing along. He's playing along, so he had to like be even more out of character, so the Bucks don't suspect anything. I don't know. That's as soon as. Oh, go ahead. What was that?
I was gonna say, that reminds me, are the Bucks still even doing anything like they're in charge, or is this just kind of by the wayside?
I've already turned off too many people. I'm not going to speak on this.
I feel like they were really building into that, and then it just like fizzled out.
Well, it's still definitely fizzling out, because I don't think they did anything last night other than accept Hangman, like into. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think and talk at the same time, and it's not working too well. Yeah, as far as I can remember, it was just like he said he was in, and they were like, "Oh, okay," and that was kind of the end of that.
They've on camera said that to Christian that we can't book you in a title match because we don't have that power. Like they said that.
Correct.
Right.
On Dynamite, not on like a YouTube show, or like on Dynamite. So that's canon now, right? They can't book matches. So then why am I supposed to fear them?
I think it would
I'm
be
with you.
cool if like, Blood and Guts is coming up and this is all leading up to that. I think it would be cool if like maybe this was they framed it like this was their pay-per-view that they had control of, but it doesn't feel like that either. So I don't know. I just feel like it
No,
could have taken
they should have won control of Dynamite
I agree.
in the Anarchy in the Arena match.
right.
Because
Yeah,
the
that should have
whole
been a
thing was
stipulation.
the whole thing was we're in charge while Tony Khan is gone. Now Tony Khan is back, and he's brought in Christopher Daniels as his like backup, just in case. So then, now they have no power then, right? If Christopher Daniels is Tony Khan's voice, then they must. Then what's the point of any of this?
Yeah.
Really, what is the point?
But I mean, if we're going by technicalities, they're just EVPs. Tony Khan is the actual owner of the company, which would make him president.
Right. But then what? Then they have no power then.
Right. I'm just going by like, I know I'm bringing business logistics into professional wrestling.
I mean, but they've it's valid because they've done that. They've brought business titles into professional wrestling. So yeah, that's valid. But like, if you're the president
on this one,
if you're the
100%.
president of a company and your vice president goes, I want to do this, you go, no, I'm the president.
Correct. But
Sorry
then that
for
also
bringing it up.
that also makes very boring television.
Because we
just
just
like
go
a
in
board
circles
meeting.
every time. Sorry,
Then
I brought it up.
all I'm saying is they should have put something in
I agree.
something.
Yeah.
Like they should have.
Yeah.
I would be
Right.
willing to believe, like when they're like, we have ironclad contracts. That's stupid. No one does. But like, fine, I'm willing to believe it because it's a wrestling thing, and fine, okay,
Correct.
I'm willing to believe you can't be fired. Sure, okay, I'll go with that. Right. But they should have just drop a one-off line being like, oh, we're allowed to control Dynamite because of our contract or something. And then, okay, like that doesn't make any sense, but at least you've explained it, right? Like you get to control Dynamite because you had that put in your new contract or whatever. Fine. Okay. But they didn't even do it. Like they've said, we have no control. So then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, I brought it up.
Everyone hates me anyway. So we
just go in circles every time it comes up.
All good. Does anybody have anything else before we go?
I mean, we didn't really talk about Danielson, did we?
Yeah. Right after Mariah May.
How
right
he's
before
just the third man in the tag team.
Yeah. No, but I mean, really, we didn't really talk about
it. No.
Like, is he? I feel like maybe they had Danielson win because the Mariah May Toni Storm thing is going to be like a blood feud. And they didn't want also a Swerve Hangman blood feud. Like, we're not going to have both these blood feuds on the same show.
Maybe.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
And speaking of blood feuds, Blood and Guts, we know who the elite team is now. Who do you think the other team is? We know it's Swerve and we know it's Mark Briscoe.
Well, obviously Darby, and my guess is Motor City Machine Guns.
I was going to say the Acclaimed.
Oh, Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah, they've the rumor is they've been signed for 3 months now, 2 months, something like that. That'd be a good surprise.
That'd be really cool.
I could see that. I think it's gonna be Darby and the Acclaimed, personally.
The Acclaimed also makes sense. FTR coming back makes sense. I mean, Dax.
Oh, FTR would make really good sense.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Dax posted on Instagram, I believe, he's not cleared yet, but he posted a picture of his back, and just 2 weeks ago, excuse me, just 2 weeks ago, he still had a huge bruise on his back, and now the bruise is totally gone. And he was I don't know, it said something just a matter of time now or something. Mm-hmm. So, he's putting those feelers out there too. So that would be.
Oh, there's two things we haven't talked about. One, which is MJF and Will Ospreay. We haven't mentioned that at all. And two, Jay's here. We haven't talked about Mercedes and Britt Baker at all.
Oh.
We have to talk about them.
Well,
I had all that in the original lineup.
Well,
I know, but then I insisted we talk about Toni Storm and NXT for most of the time.
Right. And then I rewrote the whole show. Let's go back to the first thing.
Somebody wanted the heel turn tonight.
Yeah. Well, Jay's here. We have to talk about Mercedes.
Yeah, we'll talk about Mercedes.
Oh, I just love her. Britt and Mercedes, I really think that'll be a banger. Just because I feel like their styles are very similar. Especially with how they sell. Mercedes, she'll just fling herself, and Britt doesn't care. She will get bloodied up to hell. So I really think it'll be a really, really good match. Just the two of them, I think, will go hard. Especially, and they're both the submission kind of stuff too, which Mercedes has always been good with. So it'll be, I think, fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
And Mercedes gets to be a heel.
Yeah, she's so good as a heel. Oh,
but she's really good at.
Mercedes gave, which I thought is the greatest heel move ever. I think she put it out on the internet. There's an open challenge for the TBS title next week for anybody except Britt.
Now is Britt Baker going to show up in a mask and be like, "I'm Mitt Maker," and
I hope. A match? I hope.
I saw someone say that she should wear a luchador mask with a tooth on it and be like La Dentista or something, and be like, "I'm gonna face you." That would be fun.
That'd be hilarious.
But make it so it's blatantly obvious that it's Britt Baker, but you can't say it is because you can't tell.
That's it. Yeah.
That is very, very Simpsons brain, Rick.
See, I think that would be funny, and then it's obviously her. Completely obviously, yes.
El Generico, but she's
she's wearing she's wearing Britt Baker's ring gear, like her she just happens to have a mask on. But on the back it says Britt Baker, and she's like, "No, I just borrowed this gear. This isn't mine."
Her name's Brittany Baker. She's not a dentist.
Yeah, she's just some other indie wrestler. Yes.
No, you're confusing me with the lady that's the dentist. I'm just Brittany, regular ass Brittany Baker.
Brittany Baker. I've been wrestling on the indies for years.
Yeah. I didn't go to the dental school. I just went to regular pit.
That's right.
just regular college.
Not a dentist. That's for sure. And then you see her backstage and like a segment before the match checking out someone's teeth. By the way, I'm not doing this as a dentist. I'm doing this as a friend.
Everybody knows
because I am not a dentist.
Everybody knows I check people for cavities before I wrestle.
If
you followed me on the indies, you would know.
I just really enjoy teeth.
I just really care.
Yes, I'm a very good friend. That's all.
Oh, that was amazing.
I would like that. That'd be funny.
That would be hilarious.
Make it funny. Go ahead. Wrestling should be funny sometimes. I'm fine with that.
1,000%. It should be ridiculous and absurd sometimes.
I love the absurdity.
Yes.
But yes, the match is going to be good. I think it's going to be fun. 100%. I will enjoy myself.
100,000%. Now
everyone did kind of forget about MJF though since the Mariah May stuff.
Like Mariah May happened. Like who cares?
Yeah, Mariah May turned and everyone's like, oh, whatever. Like I don't care about it anymore.
Who cares?
He calls himself the devil. She stabbed her in the face with a shoe.
The shoe. Watch for the shoe.
And then beat up Luther. I mean, come on.
And then kissed her with blood all over her face. Yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah, who cares about MJF?
What did he do? Insult someone?
Right.
Made fun of your sports team?
Get over it.
But him and Will Ospreay will be fun too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any parting words from anybody? Because Jay has to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm an old lady.
Dynamite's been good. The last few weeks of Dynamite have been very, very good. I've really enjoyed them. And I know I sound like a massive WWE fan right now, but AEW has been very good. And I will not be watching NXT. Don't worry.
That's nothing. We're all good. We have faith.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another 2 hours of TV? No, I barely have time.
I was gonna. Yeah, you don't even watch Collision. You don't need to.
I don't have time. I watched half a Collision this week and fell asleep, so I'm not gonna watch.
Nice.
Not that the show was bad. I'm just old and tired.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anybody? That's all we have, correct?
Like, share, subscribe.
Yeah. Okay, follow, we're getting there.
Do all that stuff.
Mash that City
like. Yes.
Mash that like. It. Yep, like potatoes.
Mash that like button.
Yes.
Yeah. So next week, Dynamite 250. We will have our normal show, and Biddy claims she'll be back next week, so we just put the pressure on her.
She doesn't listen, so just put pressure on her.
That's true.
I won't be the only woman anymore. Finally.
No more male opinions.
I got backup finally.
Yes.
Just me yelling about NXT and the Young Bucks.
I was gonna say, Jay, don't get too excited. We know how Biddy sometimes flakes out like halfway through. So
that was one time.
Yeah, so like we're still waiting for her Mount Rushmore.
She never came back.
Right.
It's true. She never came back.
Right. So yeah,
this is how you write her off. She just disappears mid-episode, and then
right, and then she's gonna come back randomly.
Back to her home planet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Biddy.
I'm gonna spend the next week trying to turn Biddy heel on Jay, just so she does.
She's Poochie.
I'm gonna spend the next week trying to turn Biddy heel on Jay, so that when she comes back, she's a heel.
Right.
I like heel Biddy.
No, she knows us girls got to stick together.
No, she's gonna Mariah May you. She's gonna stab you in the face with a shoe.
I hope not. That sounds pretty painful.
It does.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, on stabbing someone in the face with a shoe, that's where we will call it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. It's been fun. Until next week. Later.